So first you take your yarn and you make a circle where there's an X, and then you go underneath the circle and you go through to form a slip knot. Then you take your needle in your right hand and you go through the hole, and you take this, which is called the tail, and you tighten it until it's snug with the needle. Next, you take your hand and you go over the back of your pinky, under your thumb, and over to form an X right here. And it doesn't have to be too tight, but you want it a little bit tight to go through. And you go underneath the X and pull it through, and you make sure that this doesn't go over, but it goes straight with the other stitch. So now you've casted on 2 stitches. So you repeat this process until you have 5. Next, you make sure that they're all lined up so that you can actually reach the stitch. And then you take it in your left hand, and I usually do it where you have it's over your middle finger and over your index finger, and then you move the stitches up to close to the top of the needle. Next, you take your needle in your right hand, and where there's the dash and the circle, you go underneath the circle and behind the left needle and through. And you take your index and put it behind the right needle and your thumb in front of the left needle. And you grab the yarn, you pull it towards you and away from you. So you make a loop over the needle, and you bring it back to where they're side by side, and there's a small circle inside a big circle. And you take your right needle and you go over the small circle and through and down. And then you pull it off and tighten. And you repeat this process of going through the circle to the back of the left needle, index and thumb, towards you and away from you, side by side, over the small circle, down, pull off to tighten. So once again, you go through the circle, back behind, towards you and away from you, side by side, over and down, then pull it off and tighten. So these should line up, and you continue doing this where you go through the circle, behind, towards you and away from you, side by side, over, down, and pull it off and tighten. Then you go through the circle, index and thumb, towards you and away from you, side by side, over and down. This creates your first row. It's not very exciting, but this is the first row. And you repeat it where you now put down your right needle, put your right needle now into your left hand, take the right needle without any stitches, move the stitches up to the top of the needle, through the circle, index, thumb, towards you and away from you, side by side, over, under, through, and tighten. And you repeat this process until you feel comfortable with doing this over and over and over again to make another row. And now you've created your second row. And this is a garter stitch, so the dashes will end up always being dashes. through the circle, behind, towards you, away from you, side by side, over, down, and through. Through the circle, towards you, away from you, side by side, over, down, and through. Through the circle, towards you, away from you, side by side, over, down. And repeating this process, it should look like this, where it is stitch, V-stitch. These are 3 rows, so you have the first row, second row, and the third row. That's all to it. And you do it over and over again. And now I'm going to just knit it until it's a bookmark.